Welcome to the Weaver Podcast, your guide to crafting relationships that thrive. Through insightful dialogues and transformative wisdom, we'll unravel the complexities of communication and connection. Let's weave a world where every relationship is built upon mutual respect, deep understanding, and harmony. I'm your host, SONJA WOOD. I'm a soul-driven mediator and a visionary leader. I am devoted to elevate consciousness and cultivate thriving relationships. My deepest calling is to help all my clients create true, authentic, and extraordinary relationships where they are not only heard and understood, but also deeply respected. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to that new episode of the Weaver Podcast. I'm your host, SONJA WOOD, and today I want to discuss and talk about the creative thinking. Creative thinking is something that I've always heard about because in my studies, when I got my degree, my master's degree in chemical engineering, it's something that was very present in the studies, for engineer, creative solution, creative process, thinking creative for developing, all those technologies. So I always thought it was something more mysterious around engineering world and the bubble of engineering. And actually, I came across a book that I'm actually, more than reading it, I'm actually listening on the audiobook, to be honest with you. And more than reading, I really study the book. That means not only I read through it, but I reread the pages again and again and again until I really understand and integrate what is said. And I also, well, in this case, re-listen. I go back and re-listen and go back and re-listen, and I take notes. And this book is The Magic of Thinking Big from David Schwartz. Maybe you know the book. And if not, I so highly encourage you to look at it. And you can find the audio version on YouTube. And I have there is this chapter about creative thinking. And it's not a whole chapter, but he's talking about that. And while for years I believed creative thinking is something a little mysterious, he really put in perspective that the creative thinking is not just for a specific area. It's not just for engineering. It's not just for this context, or it's not something that mysterious. He's defining the creative thinking really as any way to improve something. So at the point where, and when you believe it can be improved, but if you believe, you're most likely going to take action to improve it, right? So I really started to wonder, okay, how in my own life and in my work, I do have that creative thinking, or I do implement creative thinking. And as being a mediator, I believe it's even more important when our job is to find solutions between our clients for them to reach an agreement. However, I started to understand as well why some of my mediations were not necessarily selling, because actually, I'm always using a lot of brainstorming. And mainly, I also love to use a technique that Bill from the High Conflict Institute is spreading, which is making proposal. And this is my go-to technique all the time because it's working, it's efficient, and it's helping the client to follow a certain path and not getting dispersed and not getting into different emotions. So implementing those techniques, and yet even with brainstorming, having some clients that are not willing to sell, are not willing to negotiate because they want to fight, because they want to go to court, because they believe that the court is better, it made me understand why that brainstorming doesn't work. And the fact is, the creative thinking attests that your brain is going to see different pathways. And either you're going to believe in something or not. If you don't believe that something can be improved or something can work, your mind is gonna find all the reasons why you believe it's not gonna work, right? If you start to believe it can work, even if you don't know how, your brain is gonna start to gather informations and data to take it to actually build a pathway that can make it work. It's gonna start to find ways to make it work. It's gonna find ways to figure it out. Even if you don't know right away right now, even if you don't have the evidence to prove it's gonna work, it can be improved, it's going to be successful. If you believe it can be, your brain is gonna start gathering information to figure it out. And that's the creative thinking. And that's why actually I believe some of the mediations that we do in as mediator are not necessarily working, because we don't get the client, we don't get the person to believe it can work. So as a consideration, it's really something I'm thinking is, how can I get my clients to believe it can work, to believe we can find a solution, and more than anything, to believe that in themselves to find a solution. Because then brainstorming is easy. After that, brainstorming is a lot easier. So creative thinking is something I really apply, and not only it's helping you to believe in your project, in your ideas, but it's fueling your persistence. Persistence is key to success. It's when you really truly believe in your project that you're most likely to push through it. But it not only it's fueling persistence, it's also attracting support. So if it's what I was saying, when you believe in something, then you start to figure out ways to do it. And maybe one of the way is finding support, is gathering information or seeking expertise that you might not have, and seeking the help from an expert to support you. That might be the belief is also helping you to be clear on what you want the outcome to be clear on the project you want to have, the improvement you want to see, the change you want to create. And you're going to be a lot more focused and committed to making it succeed. Believing in your project or your ideas is also elevating, of course, your vitality, energy, creativity. And that's why I was talking about creative thinking, because when you believe in it, you give yourself an impulse, you spark creativity, and that's why your brain starts to figure out ways to do it successful. And finally, when you believe you can do something, when you believe you can improve something, and you give yourself that chance of creative thinking, you are more likely to go into action. And rather than being in a doubt, in low confidence, low self-esteem, you're going yourself into action. And action is fuel for facing fears, it's fuel for self-confidence, for self-esteem, for proving yourself and having evidence in physical matter that you are worth doing it and you can do it successfully. So you might have doubts, you might have fears, that's for sure. We all have, right? But believing in your project, believing you can do it, it's what is going to fuel your success and the change and the improvement you want to see. So creative thinking is going to be the bridge between your doubts and your success. So that's what I wanted to share. And before we finish or today's talk, I really want, and I think you're gonna love it. You're gonna love the idea if you like to think about a little bit the way you think. If you like to challenge yourself to think differently, you're gonna love that exercise. So one of the exercises that is in the book I was talking about, The Magic of Thinking Big, is actually to think about one thing you want to do, but you don't believe yet you could do it. And how you can know such a thing would be easy. That if you think about it and you're like, oh, I don't know, that's a little complicated, or I don't know if I can do it, that's pretty hard, or that's pretty challenging. Or if you laugh at yourself, you're like, no way I'm gonna do that, then that's the right project to write down. Now you write down this project you want to implement, or your idea you want to create, your project. And the challenge is to write down, and I really encourage you to write it down. I can do this because ... And then you list why you can do this. And that might be harder on some project than others. I've done that exercise, and I tell you, for some things that's pretty easy, for other things that's a little bit more challenging. And that's a whole thing, to rewire your brain, to rewire how you think. It's to force yourself to write down all your assets that make you valuable, confident, and worth doing it, and successful. So, for example, you might have a hard time to believe you can access a certain promotion, or a certain level in wealth, or a certain you have maybe a challenging case in mediation, and you might have a hard time to think how you're gonna figure out how it's gonna work out and be successful to reach an agreement. So I challenge you to use this exercise and these techniques to really write down all the reason why it can be successful and you can do it successfully. And you might be surprised by yourself. You might figure out, oh, actually, I can do this because I have the resources, I have the education, I am passionate, I have the connection to do it, or because I'm convinced that my ideas are good, or because I know what I'm doing is very qualitative, or because I know I'm working hard on this and I can do it successful, or all the resources, or you have the time, you have the money to do it successfully. All this that are actually your assets. And I can assure you, doing that exercise not only boosts your self-confidence and your self-esteem, but you're really, after that, absorbing the information, and you're letting your brain know, I'm worth it of doing it successfully. I deserve, and I can do it successfully. I deserve that success because I'm worth of being successful. That's what the power of creative thinking can do. And I really encourage you to do that. That's what I wanted to share for this morning. I really wish you a good day. I hope you appreciated that episode. If you liked it, please, the best way to thank me is to leave a 5-star rate on your platform where you listen to it. And in the meantime, I wish you a good day. I hope to hear from you in the feedback, in the comments, and take care. Goodbye.